The twin suns of Varelia were setting, painting the royal city in gold and crimson light. The tall crystal towers of the capital shimmered like fire in the fading day. Far above, in the highest tower of the grand palace, Princess Serenia Virel sat on a balcony, staring into the sky. Her violet eyes followed the distant stars, wondering what lay beyond them. She had always dreamed of adventure, but never of the kind that was about to come. A sharp sound interrupted her thoughts, the voice of the palace steward. Calling from the hallway, "Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence in the throne hall at once." Serenia frowned. Her mother, Queen Alvera, rarely summoned her without notice. Something important was happening. She rose from her seat, her silver hair catching the last rays of sunlight, and followed the steward through the grand corridors. Tall windows revealed the glowing city outside, but Serenia barely noticed. Her mind raced with questions. When she entered the throne hall, she saw her mother seated on the high crystal throne, dressed in her ceremonial royal robe. Several council members stood nearby, and all of them looked unusually serious. The queen's eyes, calm but firm, fixed on her daughter. "Serenia," Queen Alvera began, "I have news of great importance. The council and I have made a decision." Serenia stepped forward, puzzled. "What kind of decision?" The queen's voice carried through the hall. "You are to be married." Serenia froze. She blinked, certain she had misheard. "Married? To whom?" "To a human from Earth," the queen said. The princess's jaw tightened. "A human? Mother. Why? We are Varelian. Our people are far beyond humans in technology, culture, and knowledge. Must I marry one of them?" The queen's gaze softened but remained steady. "Because, my daughter, our galaxy stands at the edge of danger. You have heard of the Void Swarm." Serenia nodded reluctantly. She had read reports about them, a mysterious, ruthless force from deep space. They consumed entire worlds, leaving only silence behind. The swarm had already destroyed several minor civilizations. "They are moving closer," the queen continued. "Our fleets are strong, but we have learned a hard truth. Strength alone may not be enough. Humanity is different from us. Are unpredictable, creative, and persistent. In battles against the Void Swarm, human tactics have succeeded where others have failed. An alliance between our worlds could be the key to survival." Serenia's voice grew sharp. "So you want to use me as a symbol? Bridge between species?" "Yes," the queen said simply. "This marriage will seal the treaty between Varelia and the United Earth Alliance. Together, we will stand against the coming storm." Serena shook her head. "This is absurd. I cannot marry someone I do not know. A human, no less." "What will our people think?" "They will see hope." The queen replied, "They will see unity." Serena's heart pounded. She wanted to argue more, but she could see from her mother's face that the decision was final. The queen was not only her mother, she was the ruler of the empire. Duty came before personal feelings. Still, Serenia could not accept it. "Will not agree to this so easily," she said. "If you want me to marry a human, I will need to meet him first. And I will decide for myself whether he is worthy." The queen's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "Very well, you shall meet him tomorrow." That night, Serenia could not sleep. She paced in her chambers, her long robes brushing against the polished floor. The idea of marrying a human felt almost insulting. What did they have that Varelians did not? To her, humans were still young as a species, brave, perhaps, but clumsy and limited compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. She stepped onto her balcony.
"I'm looking at the stars again."
Somewhere out there, her so-called fiancé was traveling to Varelia. She imagined what he might be like, awkward, unrefined, perhaps overly proud of his primitive world. She sighed. "I will find a way out of this," she murmured to herself. The next morning, the palace was full of activity. Servants polished the crystal floors. Guards stood at every entrance, and banners of both Varelia and Earth hung side by side. A large docking platform extended from the palace's upper level, where an Earth's Alliance starship was scheduled to arrive. Saranya stood beside her mother on the platform. The queen wore her formal crown, while Saranya's attire was regal yet understated, a sign that she was attending, but not eager. A deep hum filled the air as a sleek silver ship descended from the sky. It landed smoothly, and a ramp extended to the platform. From within, a small delegation stepped out. A few human diplomats, some officers, and at the center, one man in a dark blue Earth Alliance uniform. He was tall, with short black hair and steady gray eyes. His expression was calm, his movements confident. This, Saranya realized, must be Commander Daniel Kane, the man she was supposed to marry. Daniel approached the queen first, bowing his head politely. "Your Majesty, it is an honor to be welcomed." "To your world," the queen nodded. "Commander Kane, welcome to Varelia. This is my daughter, Princess Saranya." Daniel turned to her and bowed slightly. "Princess." Saranya gave him a short nod, her face unreadable. She studied him silently. He was not as awkward as she expected. In fact, he carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence she had seen only in experienced leaders. Still, she refused to let him see any sign of approval. The queen gestured toward the palace. "Let us speak in the reception hall." Inside, the reception hall gleamed with crystal light. Refreshments from both worlds were arranged on long tables. The human diplomats and Varelian council members mingled, exchanging polite words. Saranya stayed close to her mother, but kept glancing at Daniel. At one point, he caught her looking. "You seem curious, princess," he said. "Only wondering what kind of human thinks he can marry a Varelian princess," she replied coolly. Daniel's mouth twitched, as if suppressing a smile. "The kind who was ordered to, I suppose." "Just like you." Saranya's eyes narrowed. "So you're not eager either." "I'm a soldier," Daniel said. "I follow my duty, but I also believe in alliances, even unlikely ones." His calm tone unsettled her. She had expected defensiveness or arrogance, but instead he spoke with quiet conviction. They were interrupted by a palace steward announcing a combat simulation demonstration in the training hall. The queen thought it would be wise for Daniel to show his skills to the Varelian council. The training hall was vast, lined with energy shields and weapon racks. A seasoned Varelian warrior stepped forward, a towering figure in armor, to face Daniel in the simulation. The match began. The Varelian attacked with speed and precision, but Daniel moved with sharp, efficient reflexes. He dodged strikes, countered with quick blows, and used the environment to his advantage. Within minutes, he had the warrior on the defensive. Finally, with a clever feint, he disarmed his opponent and ended the match. The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. Oh, no human had ever bested a trained Varelian warrior in direct combat before. Saranya found herself staring. She had to admit, though, only to herself, that Daniel was far more capable than she imagined. As the demonstration ended, Daniel glanced in her direction. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Saranya quickly looked away, but inside her certainty began to crack. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to this human than she had believed. The next morning, the palace was quiet except for the soft hum of energy lifts and the faint voices of servants preparing for the day's meetings. Princess Saranya walked down the long marble corridor toward the gardens. She was not sure why she was going there, except that she wanted some space away from the council chamber and the constant political talk. She thought about what had happened yesterday. Commander Daniel Kane had surprised her not only with his calm answers, but also with his skill in the training hall. She had expected to see a human embarrassed in front of her people, but instead he had earned their respect. Her a little, but also made her curious. When she stepped into the gardens, she saw him. Daniel was standing near the crystal fountain, looking at a small holomap that floated above his wrist device. He seemed deep in thought, studying something. The sound of her footsteps on the stone path made him look up. "Good morning, Princess," he said politely. "Commander," she replied, keeping her tone formal. "I see you are already exploring our palace." Not exploring, Daniel said. Just learning the layout. I don't like being in a place where I don't know my surroundings. That sounds like a soldier, Saranya said. Daniel smiled slightly. That's what I am. She stood across from him, the fountain's light shimmering between them. Tell me, Commander, why did your leaders choose you for this? She asked. Daniel's gaze shifted toward the water before returning to her. Because I've worked with alien species before. Because I can follow orders without letting personal feelings get in the way. And maybe because I can handle difficult situations. Are you calling me a difficult situation? Saranya asked sharply. Daniel didn't flinch. Yes, but not in a bad way. Just different from what most soldiers face. Saranya raised an eyebrow. You are bold for a human, and you are cautious for a princess, Daniel said calmly. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Saranya was surprised at how easily he spoke to her. Most people hesitated or used flowery words in her presence, but he treated her like an equal. She wasn't sure if that was disrespect or refreshing honesty. Later that day, the Queen arranged a formal lunch for the human and Varelian delegations. Long tables were filled with food from both worlds, crystalline fruits, steaming bowls of Varelian grain, earth-grown vegetables, and spiced meat dishes. The conversation began politely, with diplomats discussing trade, technology sharing, and cultural exchanges. Saranya stayed quiet, listening. She was still trying to measure Daniel's character. Midway through the meal, one of the human diplomats asked about Varelian defense strategies. A council member responded with a long explanation about fleet formations and shield harmonics. Daniel, however, leaned forward and asked a question that made the council pause. What happens when the Void Swarm attacks somewhere unexpected? He asked. Your fleets are strong, but what if they don't attack where you're prepared? The council member frowned slightly. Our intelligence network predicts enemy movements with high accuracy, and if it's wrong, Daniel pressed, the Void Swarm adapts. We've seen it. They change tactics fast. You need a plan for the unexpected. There was a brief silence. Saranya's eyes shifted toward Daniel. He was not trying to show off, he was serious. From the way her council members looked at him, she could tell he had made them think. Her mother spoke after a pause. Commander Kane, perhaps you would care to share what you would do in such a case? Daniel leaned back. I'd split the fleet. Keep strong defenses where you expect the attack, but send small, fast strike groups to monitor less protected systems. If the enemy changes course, those groups can delay them until the main fleet arrives. One of the Varelian admirals gave a short nod. Not bad for a human. Ina hid a small smile. Daniel was slowly breaking through their pride. In the afternoon, Queen suggested a joint training exercise between humans and Varelians. Saranya did not want to participate at first, but her mother's look told her she had no choice. The training area was a vast dome filled with simulated terrain. Obstacles shifted and shimmered as the program changed environments. Desert, forest, urban ruins. The goal was simple. Locate a hidden beacon before the other team. Saranya led the Varelian team. Daniel led the humans. The match began. The Varelians moved quickly, using speed and advanced scanners to search. Saranya thought they would easily win. But within minutes, Daniel's team began using unusual tactics. They moved unpredictably, splitting into pairs, then regrouping, setting ambushes, and using decoys. Twice, Saranya's team nearly reached the beacon, only to be intercepted by a small human unit. She realized Daniel was deliberately steering her team away from the target without fighting directly. Finally, after almost an hour, Daniel's team reached the beacon first. A bright tone signaled the match's end. Saranya's pride stung. She approached Daniel, her expression controlled. You got lucky. Daniel gave a faint smile. Luck is part of war, but so is misdirection. Saranya folded her arms. You think you could do that to the Void Swarm? Think it's worth trying, Daniel said seriously. They're dangerous. But no enemy is perfect. Him for a moment. He wasn't arrogant, just confident in his ideas. That, she admitted, was harder to dismiss. That evening, Serenia walked alone through the palace library. Tall shelves of glowing data crystals lined the walls. She had come here to think. Her thoughts were interrupted by the faint sound of footsteps. She turned to see Daniel entering, holding a small Varelian data tablet. "I thought you would." "Be in the guest quarters," Serenia said. "I wanted to read more about your history," Daniel replied. "If we're supposed to be allies, I should understand your people." Serenia hesitated, then gestured to the shelves. "This section covers our early space exploration. You may find it enlightening." Daniel looked around, running his hand along the smooth crystal shelves. "It's impressive. Your people were traveling between stars when humans were still learning to cross oceans." "Exactly," Serenia said. "Which is why I do not understand why my mother believes humans are so important." Daniel looked at her steadily. "Because sometimes it's not about who started first. It's about who adapts faster when the world changes." For a moment, they just stood there in the quiet library. Serenia wanted to argue, but she remembered his training victory and the way he had challenged the council at lunch. Maybe there was truth in his words. The peaceful moment did not last. A sudden chime echoed through the palace. A security alarm. Both of them looked toward the door. A palace guard rushed in. "Your Highness, Commander, there's been a breach in the lower docking bay." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "We don't know," the guard said, "but they're armed." Without hesitation, Daniel started toward the door. "Let's go." Serenia followed, her own training kicking in. They raced through the corridors, joined by more guards as they descended toward the docking bay. When they arrived, the doors were half open, sparks flying from damaged panels. Inside, shadows moved quickly between supply crates. A sharp energy blast struck the wall near them, forcing the guards to take cover. Daniel glanced at Serenia. "You know this palace better than I do. Where can we flank them?" She pointed. "To a side passage, through there. It leads behind the storage racks." Daniel nodded. "You take left, I take right. Move on my signal." They slipped into the passage, moving quietly.
Ow.
Serena's heart pounded, but her focus was sharp. When Daniel signaled, they stepped out together, weapons ready. 2 intruders in dark armor turned toward them, surprised. Serenia fired first, hitting one with a stun blast. Daniel moved in swiftly, disarming the second and forcing him to the ground. Within minutes, the remaining attackers were subdued. The guards secured them and began scanning their gear. One of the guards looked up. "They're carrying Void Swarm tech. These aren't ordinary raiders." Serenia's gaze met Daniel's. The alliance was no longer just politics. The enemy was already here. The palace was tense after the attack in the docking bay. Guards doubled their patrols, and security drones floated silently in every hallway. The intruders had been taken to a secure holding cell, but their presence had shaken everyone. "Princess." Serenia walked alongside Commander Daniel Kane toward the council chamber. She could see that Daniel's expression was more serious than usual. "You're certain they were using Void Swarm technology?" Serenia asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "No doubt. Seen it before. Adaptive weapons, self-repairing armor. You can't buy that from any normal black market dealer." Serenia's mind was racing. The Void Swarm had agents here, inside the capital. That meant the danger was closer than anyone had admitted. The secret meeting later that night. Serenia passed by the council hall. The doors were closed, but faint voices drifted through. She recognized her mother's voice, along with several council members. Something in their tone made her pause. She knew she should not eavesdrop. It was against palace protocol, but something told her this was important. She moved closer, standing just out of sight near the door. Inside, Queen Elvira spoke gravely. "The Void Swarm is no longer simply a distant threat. They are already here. Our scouts report entire colonies disappearing in the outer sectors." Of the admirals' voices followed. "Our fleets can hold them for now, but their numbers grow faster than we can destroy them. They learn from every battle." Another council member said, "This is why the alliance with Earth cannot fail. Humans think differently. Their strategies are unpredictable, even to the swarm. Serenia frowned. She had heard similar reasoning before, but this time there was a sharper edge in their words. Her mother continued, "The marriage is not just symbolic. It will merge our military commands. Human creativity combined with Varelian precision could be the only thing that saves us." Serena's heart tightened. She had known her marriage to Daniel was political, but she had not realized how desperate the situation was. Confronting the truth, when the meeting ended and the council members began to leave, Serenia quickly slipped away before anyone saw her. She walked to a quiet balcony and stared out at the city lights. She felt conflicted. On one hand, she resented being forced into a marriage she had not chosen. On the other, she could no longer deny the stakes. Her people's survival, and perhaps Earth's, might depend on it. Daniel found her there a few minutes later. "He left the banquet early," he said. "I wasn't hungry," Serenia replied. He studied her for a moment. "You know something?" Serenia turned to him. "I overheard the council. The Void Swarm is closer than they're telling the public. This marriage, it's not just a treaty, it's a battle plan." Daniel gave a slow nod. "That's what I thought from the start. My superiors didn't tell me much, but I could guess." For a long moment they stood in silence, the wind carrying the faint hum of the city below. Finally, Daniel spoke. "If they're already here, then it's only a matter of time before they try again. And next time they'll send more than just scouts." The assassins returned. The warning came sooner than either of them expected. The following evening, alarms blared through the palace once more. Guards shouted orders, and the sound of blaster fire echoed through the lower halls. A breathless officer ran to them. "Highness, Commander, the prisoners from yesterday, they've escaped. They're heading toward the royal wing." Serenia's hand went to the small energy blade at her belt. Daniel checked the charge on his sidearm. "Stay close to me," he said. "I'm not the one who needs protection." Serenia replied sharply. They moved quickly through the corridors, following the sound of fighting. Rounding a corner, they saw two of the armored assassins forcing their way toward the queen's chambers. Palace guards were pinned down, unable to get close. Daniel glanced at Serenia. "We take the high walkway. We can flank them from above." They sprinted up a side stairway, moving along a narrow balcony that overlooked the hallway below. Serenia crouched low, her keen eyes tracking the attackers. "Now," Daniel whispered. They dropped down together, landing behind the assassins. Serena's blade flashed in the light as she struck one in the leg, forcing him to stumble. Daniel fired a precise stun shot at the other's helmet, knocking him to the floor. The first assassin turned on Serenia, swinging a heavy weapon. She dodged, countered with a quick strike, and forced him back. Daniel moved in, delivering a disabling blast to his armor. Within seconds, both attackers were down. Guards rushed forward to secure them. Fighting side by side, it was the first time Serenia and Daniel had fought together, and the experience left her unsettled. What she had expected him to be competent, but not to match her speed and instinct so closely. "You fight well," she admitted quietly as they walked back toward the queen's chamber. "So do you," Daniel said simply. "But you take too many risks." Serenia raised an eyebrow. "I take risks because I know I can handle them." Daniel met her gaze evenly. "You're a princess. If something happens to you, it's not just your life at stake." His words stayed with her longer than she expected. Aftermath that night, the queen summoned them both to her private audience chamber. She looked at them with a mixture of gratitude and concern. "You saved my life," she said. "Both of you. Oh, for that I am thankful. But this confirms what we feared. The Void Swarm has agents within our reach." Daniel stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we need to tighten palace security, and we need to take the fight to them before they send more." The queen nodded. "You will have what you need, and you will work together." Serenia inclined her head. She could feel the weight of her mother's gaze. This was no longer about personal choice. It was about survival. A change in perspective later. Serenia walked alone through the palace gardens. The twin moons hung low in the sky, their pale light reflecting off the fountain's surface. She thought about Daniel's calm in battle, his quick thinking, and his refusal to treat her like someone fragile. He was different from what she expected. In a human, perhaps different from what she expected in anyone. When she saw him enter the garden, she didn't walk away. "You were right," she said quietly. Daniel looked at her, puzzled. "About what?" "About the marriage," she said. "It isn't just politics. It's war strategy. And maybe it's necessary." Daniel's voice was calm. "I don't like the idea of forcing anyone into this. But I'll fight beside you, with or without a marriage." For the first time, Serena gave him a small smile. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that choice." Above them, the stars shimmered, but Serena knew danger was moving among them. The Void Swarm was closer than anyone wanted to admit, and now she and Daniel would have to face it together. The warning came just before dawn. A deep, thunder-like vibration rolled through the royal city, waking even those who could sleep through storms. Sirens began to wail, their sharp tone echoing across the crystal towers. The sky above the capital shimmered with faint flashes of light, not lightning, but energy discharges from weapons. Princess Serena stood on her balcony, already dressed in her light combat armor. The air was tense. Far in the distance, she could see the faint silhouettes of warships breaking through the upper atmosphere. They were not Varelian. They were not human. They were the Void Swarm. The enemy arrives. Palace's main control room was alive with activity when Serena arrived. Holoscreens floated in the air, each showing parts of the city under attack. Swarm ships dark. Insect-like vessels moved in coordinated patterns, raining down plasma bolts on defense turrets. Commander Daniel Kane was already there, leaning over a tactical display with the Varelian admirals. His face was calm, but his voice was sharp. "They're focusing on the northern defense ring," Daniel said. "They want to knock out your shield generators first," one of the admirals replied. "We have already deployed half our fleet, too." "Intercept." "That's a mistake," Daniel said. "The swarm wants you to commit all forces to one point. Then they'll slip smaller units into weaker areas." Admirals exchanged doubtful glances. Serena stepped forward. "I fought beside him. He's right. The swarm adapts fast. We must not give them an opening." Her mother, Queen Alvera, appeared on the central screen from the War Council chamber. "Then what do you suggest, Commander?" Daniel tapped the holomap. "Split the defense. Keep heavy ships on the northern ring, but send small, fast squadrons to patrol the southern approaches. If the swarm changes direction, we'll be ready." Queen Alvara nodded once. "Do it." "And Serena, go with him. He will lead the Varelian strike team." Defense begins within minutes. Serena and Daniel were aboard a small Varelian cruiser. The bridge was lined with both human and Varelian officers. An unusual sight that would have been unthinkable a few weeks ago. Now, no one questioned it. The cruiser shot out of the docking bay, weaving between larger warships. Through the forward viewport, the battle unfolded in terrible beauty. Bright streaks of plasma fire, exploding ships, and the swirling dance of fighters against the black sky. Enemy interceptors incoming. A Varelian pilot shouted, "Target their wings, not the core," Daniel ordered. "Force them to break formation." Serena's voice followed quickly. "Varelian gunners, synchronize fire. Humans, keep scanning for cloaked units. The swarm loves to hide before striking." The mixed crew worked together surprisingly well. Within moments, the first wave of enemy interceptors was scattered, but the battle was far from over. Inside the city, while the fleets clashed above smaller swarm, craft broke through the outer defenses and began landing in the city's streets. Their soldiers were unlike anything Serena had faced before. Tall, armored creatures with segmented limbs and glowing insect-like eyes. Reports of civilian evacuations filled the comms. The palace ordered strike teams to clear key locations. Before the swarm could overrun them, Daniel turned to Serena. "If we let them dig in, they'll spread through the city like a plague." "I know," Serena said. "We'll lead the ground assault." The streets of fire, the cruiser landed in a wide plaza near the city's defense headquarters. Smoke filled the air, and the sound of weapons fire echoed off the tall crystal towers. Shops and homes lay in ruins, and frightened civilians hurried. Toward underground shelters, Daniel's squad of human soldiers joined Serena's Varelian guards. The two leaders moved at the front, weapons ready. They advanced carefully through the streets, clearing one block at a time. Serenia moved with the grace of a trained warrior, striking down swarm attackers with precise energy blade cuts. Daniel fought with steady precision, taking quick shots and covering his allies whenever they moved. At one intersection, a large swarm warrior dropped from a rooftop, blocking their path. Its armor shimmered with adaptive shielding. Shields won't drop with direct hits, human soldier shouted. Serena quickly assessed the enemy, aimed for the joints, break its movement. The team focused fire on the creature's leg joints. Sparks flew and its movement slowed. Daniel charged forward, delivering a heavy strike to its side. The beast collapsed, screeching. Before falling still, the team pushed forward. Holding the line, hours seemed to blur into each other. The defenders fought from street to street, building to building. Serena and Daniel never strayed far from each other, instinctively covering one another in every fight. At one point, Daniel was nearly caught by a flanking enemy unit. Serena moved without thinking, placing herself between him and the attackers, her energy blade deflecting incoming fire. "You're supposed to let me protect you, Daniel?" said breathlessly. "Too late," Serena replied with the faintest smile. "I already decided to protect you." It was the first moment of levity between them during the battle, but it was brief. More enemy troops poured in, and they returned to fighting. The turning point by late afternoon, the tide of battle began to shift. Daniel's earlier prediction proved correct. The swarm had tried to slip reinforcements through the southern perimeter, but thanks to the split defense, they were intercepted before they could reach the heart of the city. The palace ordered all strike teams to converge near the northern shield generators, where the swarm was making a final push. Serena and Daniel led their combined team into the thickest fighting yet. Explosions shook the ground, and the air was thick with smoke. Enemy soldiers swarmed around the base of the massive shield towers. Daniel pointed to a cluster of swarm engineers planting charges. "If they bring down that generator, the city's done." Serena's voice cut through the chaos. "All units, focus on those charges. Push them back." The combined human Varelian force surged forward, Serena's blade and Daniel's blaster moved in perfect coordination, cutting a path through the attackers. Behind them, their soldiers dismantled or destroyed the explosive charges. One by one, the swarm soldiers began to retreat. Their formations broke apart, and soon they were fleeing toward their remaining ships. After the battle by nightfall, the skies were clear of enemy craft. The Varelian capital was safe for now. Serena stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Fires still burned in some districts, but most were under control. She could see crews repairing shield towers and citizens emerging cautiously from shelters. Daniel joined her, his uniform scorched but intact. "We held them off," he said. "Quietly, for now," Serena replied. "They'll be back." Daniel nodded. "Yes, but now they know we can stand together." She looked at him, her voice softer. "We fought well as one, Varelians and humans." Daniel met her gaze, "And maybe we can live as one too." Serena didn't answer right away, but there was no anger in her expression now, only thoughtfulness. New resolve later, the Queen addressed both the Varelian people and the human delegation. She praised the unity shown during the battle and declared the defense a symbol of the alliance's strength in private. She spoke to her daughter. "You see now why this union matters. Alone we might have fallen. Together we stood." Serena bowed her head slightly. "I understand, Mother, and I will do what is needed not only for duty, but because I have seen what he can do." Queen Elvira gave her a knowing smile. That night, Serena found Daniel in the palace courtyard. The moonlight reflected off the fountain between them. She stepped closer. "When this began," she said, "I thought you were just another soldier following orders. Now, I see you're more than that." Daniel gave a faint smile. "I thought you were just a princess caught in politics. You're more than that, too." They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the recovering city in the distance. The war was far from over, but a new bond had been forged in battle, and for the first time, Serena no longer dreaded the thought of their marriage. She saw it for what it could be, the beginning of a united future. The Varelian capital was slowly returning to life after the Great Battle. Streets were being cleared of debris, energy shields repaired, and homes rebuilt. But while the city worked to recover, everyone knew the war with the Void Swarm was far. From over in the royal palace, preparations had begun for an event unlike any in the history of both worlds, the marriage of Princess Seranya, Virel, and Commander Daniel Kane. It would be more than a wedding. It would be the living symbol of the alliance between the Varelian Empire and the United Earth Alliance. The days before the ceremony, for 3 days, the palace buzzed with activity. Decorations were hung in the great halls, banners of both Varelia and Earth draped side by side. Musicians from both species practiced together, learning each other's songs. Even the kitchens worked as one, preparing a grand feast that would mix the finest foods from both worlds. Seranya walked through the palace gardens one evening, thinking about how much had changed. Only a short time ago she had resisted this marriage with all her will. She had thought of Daniel as a stranger forced upon her by politics. Now she remembered fighting beside him, trusting her life to him, and watching him inspire her people and his own. Daniel found her there, standing by the moonlit fountain. Thinking about running away? He asked lightly. She glanced at him, amused. Not anymore. But I am thinking about the responsibility we're about to take on. Daniel nodded. It's more than a wedding. It's a promise to both our peoples that will stand together. That's not something we can take lightly. Serenia studied him for a moment. When this began, I thought you didn't care about the marriage itself, that you only cared about the mission. Daniel gave a faint smile. Maybe that was true at first. But I've learned that missions are easier when you trust the person next to you. I trust you, Serenia. Her chest warmed at his words. She didn't say it out loud, but she felt the same. Guests from 2 worlds the day before the ceremony, ships from across the galaxy began arriving. Some brought Varelian nobles and military leaders. Others carried human ambassadors, Earth Alliance fleet captains, and even civilian leaders from Earth cities. In the grand reception hall, the 2 sides mingled. At first, there were polite but cautious conversations. Many Varelians still thought humans were too primitive to be true partners. Many humans still felt uneasy among such advanced aliens. But as the hours passed, stories from the recent battle began to spread. Humans spoke of Varelian bravery under fire. Varelians spoke of human ingenuity, turning the tide. The tension slowly faded, placed by curiosity and mutual respect. Serenia stood with her mother at the far end of the hall, watching. It's working, she said softly. Queen Elvira nodded. What? Yes, but tomorrow we'll seal it. The ceremony begins the next day, dawned bright under the twin suns. The palace courtyard had been transformed into a breathtaking ceremonial ground. Rows of guests sat beneath banners of blue and silver, the colors of both nations. A long crystal walkway led from the palace gates to a raised platform, where the queen herself would bless the union. Serenia's gown shimmered in the sunlight. A blend of Varelian silver threads and human-style design, delicate circlet, rested on her brow. She moved with quiet grace, but her heart beat quickly. Daniel waited at the far end of the walkway, dressed in a formal uniform that had been redesigned to include Varelian patterns. His posture was straight. But Serenia could see the faint smile that told her he was glad she was there. As Serenia walked toward him, the crowd grew silent. The soft music of both worlds blended together, Varelian crystal harps and earths. Deep brass instruments dot the vows they stood before Queen Elvira, who looked at them with pride. Today we unite not only to people, but to worlds. Varelia and Earth face a dark enemy. But together, we are stronger than the enemy can ever be. Turning to Serenia, she said, Do you, Princess Serenia Varel, swear to stand beside this man not only as his wife, but as his ally in all that is to come? Serenia met Daniel's gaze. I do. The queen turned to Daniel. Do you, Commander Daniel Kane of Earth, swear to stand beside this woman? Not only as her husband, but as her ally in all that is to come? Daniel's voice was steady. Queen Elvira placed her hands on theirs. Then let this be the bond that will not break. You are now partners in life and in the defense of our people." A cheer rose from the gathered crowd. The sound carried through the palace grounds, echoed by the ringing of Varelian crystal chimes and the deep horns of the human fleet, the feast of unity that evening. The great hall was filled with light and music. Guests feasted on dishes from both worlds. Humans tried Varelian crystal fruit for the first time, while Varelians sampled Earth's roasted meats and spiced breads. Serenia and Daniel moved among the guests, speaking with leaders, soldiers, and civilians alike. Everywhere they went, people greeted them warmly. The war was far from won, but hope now had a face to faces. Standing together at one point, Daniel leaned close to Serenia. "I think your people like me now. They liked you the moment you saved my life," she replied. Daniel chuckled. "And when was that? In the docking bay or during the street battle?" Serenia said with a small smile. A quiet moment late into the night. When most of the guests had left, Serenia and Daniel stepped out onto one of the palace balconies. The city lights sparkled below and the stars shone above. "It feels strange," Serenia said softly, "to have gone from arguing about this marriage to actually accepting it." Daniel looked at her. "I think we both had to fight together to see the truth. This isn't about you or me. It's about giving our people a reason to believe we can win." Serenia nodded. "Yes, and I think we can. Not because of my people alone or yours alone, but because we'll fight as one." For a moment, they simply stood there, side by side, watching the stars. The next battle, the peace of the evening, was interrupted by the soft chime of Daniel's communicator. He answered, listening carefully. When he looked at Serenia, his expression was serious. "That didn't take long," he said. "Scout ships report swarm activity on the edge of the Gather system. They're moving again." Serenia's eyes narrowed. "So soon after the attack here?" "They're testing us," Daniel said. "They want to see if the Alliance is truly ready." Serenia stepped back into the hall, her gown flowing behind her. "Then let's show them." The united command within hours, joint human Varelian task forces were mobilizing. Daniel and Serenia stood in the main command room, issuing orders side by side. Varelian officers saluted Daniel without hesitation. Human officers addressed Serenia with the same respect they gave their own commanders. The walls between their peoples were crumbling fast, and in their place, united force was forming. When the preparations were complete, Daniel turned to Serenia. "Ready?" She met his gaze. "Always." The closing scene, their ship lifted from the capital's docking platform, rising toward the stars. Through the viewport, Serenia watched the glowing world of Varelia fall away beneath them. Ahead, the darkness of space stretched endlessly, but she no longer saw it as only a threat. Beside her, Daniel sat at the controls, steady and sure. She realized that whatever battles lay ahead, they would face them together. The marriage had begun as a political duty. Now it was something far greater, a bond forged in trust, strengthened in battle, and sealed by choice. And somewhere in the distance, the void swarm was waiting, but so were they.